The Sunday dinner table was set with Mom's finest china, the kind she only brought out when she wanted to remind everyone of the family hierarchy. My sister Victoria sat at the head of the table, her new diamond bracelet catching the light with every dramatic gesture. Her husband Marcus nodded along to everything she said, and their 2 children sat perfectly still in their seats. My son Ethan sat beside me, his journal open in front of him, pen moving steadily across the page. He was 12 years old, quiet, and had always preferred books to people. "So, how's school going for Ethan?" Victoria asked, her voice dripping with false concern. She already knew the answer. She'd made it her mission to know everything about my life so she could pick it apart at family gatherings. "It's going well," I said simply, cutting into my chicken. "Really?" Victoria's eyebrow arched. "Because I spoke to Principal Henderson at the charity auction last week. She mentioned Ethan's reading scores are still below grade level." The table went quiet. Mom set down her fork. Dad stopped chewing. My brother James looked uncomfortable but said nothing. "He's making progress," I said calmly. "Progress?" Victoria laughed, sharp and cutting. "He's 12 years old and reads like he's 8. Don't you think that's concerning?" Ethan's pen kept moving. He didn't look up. "Every child develops at their own pace," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "That's what parents say when they're in denial." Victoria leaned back in her chair, enjoying herself now. She took a slow sip of wine, letting the moment hang in the air. "Marcus, didn't you tell me about that learning center downtown? The one for children with special needs?" Marcus cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable with being pulled into the conversation. "Well, yes, there's a facility that specializes in developmental delays and learning disabilities. They have good success rates with—" "He doesn't need a special facility," I interrupted, my tone firm but controlled. "Clearly he needs something." Victoria gestured at Ethan with her wine glass. "Look at him. Even now, he's scribbling in that journal instead of participating in family conversation. It's not normal." "He's fine," I said. "He can't even read at grade level," Victoria said, her voice rising. "How is that fine?" Mom reached over and touched my arm. "Honey, maybe Victoria has a point. There are resources available. Good programs that could help Ethan catch up to his peers." "He doesn't need to catch up." "Yes, he does." Victoria's voice was sharp now, cutting through any pretense of concern. "Face reality. Your son is struggling and you're too proud to get him the help he needs." James finally spoke up. "Victoria, maybe we should—" "No." She cut him off. "Someone needs to say it. She's been making excuses for years. First it was he's shy, then it was he's creative, now it's he develops at his own pace. When does she admit there's actually a problem?" I looked at Ethan. His hand had stopped moving. The pen was still hovering above the page. But he wasn't looking at any of us. His eyes were distant, focused on something none of them could see. "Ethan reads just fine," I said quietly. "The principal said." "I know what the principal said." Victoria smiled, triumphant. "So you admit it. He's behind. He reads different material than what they test for in school." "Oh, please." Victoria rolled her eyes. "What's he reading? Picture books?" "No." "Comic books?" "No." "Then what?" She leaned forward, her smile vicious now. "Enlighten us. What is your special little boy reading that's so advanced the school can't measure it?" I set down my fork. "He's not reading. He's writing." The table went silent again, but this time the quality of the silence was different. "Sharper." "Writing," Victoria repeated, her tone mocking. "Writing what?" "Little stories." "Something like that." "How adorable." She looked around the table, inviting everyone to share in her amusement. "The boy who can't read at grade level is going to be a writer." Dad chuckled. Mom pressed her lips together but didn't disagree. Marcus looked away. "You're encouraging this?" Victoria asked. "Instead of getting him proper help, you're letting him waste time writing?" "It's not a waste of time." "It absolutely is." Victoria's voice was hard now. "He needs to focus on fundamentals. Reading comprehension. Vocabulary. Basic skills. Not fantasy nonsense in a journal." Ethan closed his journal carefully. His movements were precise, controlled. He looked at his grandmother. "May I be excused?" he asked quietly. Mom's face softened. Of course, sweetheart. You don't need to sit through this. Ethan stood, picked up his journal and walked toward the living room. I watched him go, watched the careful way he held himself, the dignity in his small frame. See. Victoria gestured at his retreating back. He can't even handle a simple family conversation. How's he going to handle the real world? He handles more than you know. Does he? Victoria leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you've got a 12-year-old who can't read properly, can't socialize normally, and spends all his time in a fantasy world. That's not handling things. That's avoidance. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. I'm serious, Victoria continued. You need to wake up. Stop enabling him. Stop making excuses. Get him tested. Get him into a program. Do something productive instead of letting him pretend he's going to be some kind of writer. The phone buzzed again. And again. Aren't you going to get that? Mom asked. I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from a New York number. 2 text messages. I opened the first one. Everything okay? James asked. I read the message. Then I read it again. What is it? Mom's voice was concerned now. I stood up from the table. Excuse me for a moment. I walked to the living room where Ethan sat on the couch, journal open again, pen moving. I sat down beside him. Ethan, I said quietly. Did you submit your manuscript? He looked up at me. You said I should send it when I was ready. I did say that. I was ready. I looked at my phone again. The text message was clear. This is Jennifer Chen from Milestone Publishing. We received Ethan's manuscript. We need to speak with you immediately. Please call as soon as possible. How long ago did you send it? I asked. 3 months ago. 3 months. You were stressed about work. I didn't want to add pressure. I stared at him. 12 years old and already protecting me. The phone rang. I answered it. Hello. Is this Ethan's mother? The woman's voice was professional, clipped with New York efficiency. Yes, this is she. This is Jennifer Chen, senior editor at Milestone Publishing. I've been trying to reach you regarding Ethan's manuscript. I apologize for the multiple calls, but this is somewhat urgent. Behind me I heard footsteps. Victoria had followed me into the living room, her curiosity getting the better of her irritation. What's going on? She asked, her voice still carrying that edge of superiority. I held up a hand, listening intently to Jennifer's words. We'd like to offer Ethan a 3-book contract, Jennifer said. His manuscript is extraordinary. We haven't seen anything like it from an author his age. Actually, we haven't seen anything like it from any author in years. Victoria moved closer, trying to hear. The advance we're proposing is $2 million, Jennifer continued. $1 million for the first book, $500,000 each for the second and third. We'll discuss specifics, but I wanted to reach you today because we already have interest from film studios. Warner Brothers called this morning. I couldn't speak. Hello. Jennifer's voice sharpened. Are you still there? Yes, I managed. I'm here. We'd like to schedule a meeting in New York. Next week if possible. We'll fly you both out, of course. First class. We need to move quickly on this. Victoria was standing right beside me now, her face confused. What's happening? She whispered. I looked at Ethan. He was watching me calmly, his journal closed now. Can I call you back in 10 minutes? I asked Jennifer. Of course. But please don't wait too long. We're very serious about this project. I hung up. Who was that? Victoria demanded. A publisher. A publisher? For what? For Ethan's book. The color drained from Victoria's face. What book? The one he's been writing. The one you called fantasy nonsense. He wrote a book? Apparently a very good one. Mom and Dad had appeared in the doorway now, along with Marcus and James. What's going on? Dad asked. Victoria grabbed my phone. I let her. She scrolled through the messages, her eyes widening with each line. $2 million, she read aloud. 3-book contract. Film interest. She looked up at me. This is a joke. It's not. It has to be. He's 12. He can't. She stopped. Can't what? I asked quietly. Can't read. The room was completely silent now. Ethan, I said, still looking at Victoria. Would you mind reading your opening paragraph for everyone? He opened his journal to a marked page and began to read. His voice was clear, confident, nothing like the quiet boy who'd asked to be excused from dinner. The city of Ashenmore existed in the space between breath and shadow, where memory became solid and time ran backward through the streets like water finding its level. Kira had walked these streets for 13 years, though she'd only been alive for 12, and she understood that paradox the way most children understood hunger or cold, as a fundamental truth that required no explanation. He stopped reading. The silence stretched. Victoria's hand shook as she set down my phone. He wrote that? He's written 400 pages like that, I said. Maybe you'd like to tell him again how he can't read at grade level? I didn't know, Victoria whispered. You didn't ask. You assumed. Mom moved forward, her eyes bright with tears. Ethan, sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? Ethan shrugged. You were all so sure I couldn't do things. I figured I'd show you instead of telling you. My phone rang again. A different New York number. Answer it, Victoria said, her voice hollow. I did. This is David Morrison from the Times, a man's voice said. We're running a story on young debut authors and Milestone Publishing mentioned Ethan's contract. We'd love to include him in next Sunday's feature. Would you and Ethan be available for an interview this week? I looked around the room at my family's shocked faces. We'll need to check our schedule, I said. Can I call you back? Absolutely. We're running the story regardless, but we'd love Ethan's voice in it. I hung up and sat down next to my son. The New York Times wants to interview you, I told him. He nodded like this was perfectly normal. Should I wear the blue shirt or the gray one? I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Ethan smiled and then he was laughing too. Victoria sank into a chair. $2 million. For the first 3 books, I said. Jennifer mentioned film studios. That'll be separate. Film studios, Victoria repeated faintly. Marcus cleared his throat. I think we may have misjudged the situation. You think? I looked at him. Dad sat down heavily on the couch. A 3-book contract. At 12 years old. With film interest, James added, still looking stunned. Mom came over and hugged Ethan tightly. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. So incredibly proud. Ethan hugged her back, but over her shoulder I saw him looking at Victoria. I can read just fine, he said quietly. I just read different things than you expected. Victoria's perfect composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. Ethan, I'm so sorry. It's okay, he said, and I could hear that he meant it. Most people don't understand until they see the proof. My phone buzzed with another message. Then another. By the time the evening ended, we'd heard from 2 more publishers making counteroffers, 3 journalists wanting interviews, and an agent who represented major film writers asking if Ethan had representation. Victoria left early, her diamond bracelet suddenly seeming very small and very dim. The next morning, Ethan and I sat at our kitchen table with our laptops, reviewing contracts and scheduling calls. His journal lay beside him, filled with the words that had changed everything. Mom? He said, looking up from an email. Yes. Can I still go to school tomorrow? I don't want to miss math class. I smiled. Of course you can. Good. He went back to typing. Mr. Peterson is teaching quadratic equations. I need those for the 3rd book. My son, who couldn't read at grade level according to standardized tests, was planning the mathematics for his next novel while fielding calls from New York publishers. Sometimes the world gets it wrong. And sometimes, if you're patient enough and brave enough, you get to prove exactly how wrong they were. Ethan's first book hit shelves 6 months later. It debuted at #1 on every major bestseller list. The principal called to apologize. Victoria sent flowers. The family group chat exploded with congratulations and requests for signed copies. But my favorite moment came 2 weeks after publication, when Ethan came home from school with a note from his reading teacher. What does it say? I asked. He handed it to me, smiling. Dear Ethan, I understand now why the standardized tests didn't capture your abilities. I've never had a student teach me so much about what reading really means. Would you consider leading a creative writing workshop for your classmates? I looked at my son, the boy they'd said couldn't read, the author with a 3-book deal and film studios competing for rights to his story. Well, I asked. Are you going to do it? He picked up his journal, that constant companion, and smiled. Of course, he said. Everyone deserves to find their own way to read the world. And he opened his journal and started writing again, proving with every word that sometimes the quietest voices tell the loudest stories. The afternoon sun filtered through the kitchen windows as I watched my daughter, Emma, practice her violin. She had her father's concentration, that same furrow between her eyebrows when she focused. At 12 years old, she was becoming her own person, thoughtful and kind in ways that made my chest ache with pride. We'd worked hard to get here. Years of therapy, of advocating in schools, of teaching her that being different wasn't being less. My phone buzzed on the counter. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated before answering. Sarah, you're coming to Jessica's graduation party this Saturday, right? Her tone was brisk, expectant. Of course. Emma's been looking forward to it. My daughter had marked it on her calendar 3 weeks ago, counting down the days. There was a pause, not a comfortable silence, but the kind that preceded difficult conversations. Actually, I need to talk to you about that. Something in her voice made me tense. About what? It would be better if Emma stayed home this time. Jessica's friends from the academy will be there, and you know how these things are. Lots of important families. My stomach dropped. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying your daughter doesn't exactly fit in with that crowd. It's nothing personal. Jessica worked hard to get into that school. We can't have anything awkward. I gripped the phone tighter. Awkward? She's your granddaughter. She's also autistic, Sarah. She makes those noises sometimes, and the rocking thing. Jessica's Princeton recruiter might be there. We need everything to be perfect. The words hit me like cold water. This was my mother. The woman who'd held Emma as a baby, who'd claimed to accept the diagnosis. I looked at Emma, still absorbed in her music, unaware that her own grandmother was trying to erase her from family events. We'll both be there, Mom. See you Saturday. I hung up before she could respond. Saturday arrived with perfect weather that made everything worse. Emma wore her favorite blue dress with sunflowers. She'd been talking about seeing cousin Jessica all week, practicing what she'd say. The party was in full swing when we arrived. My sister's backyard was transformed with white tents and string lights. I spotted Mom near the dessert table in her cream suit, holding court with well-dressed women. Her eyes widened when she saw us. She excused herself and walked over quickly, her smile tight. Sarah, I thought we discussed this. We did. I said we'd be here. Before she could respond, Emma spotted the buffet table and headed toward it, hands flapping with excitement. I saw Mom's jaw clench. She's stimmying in front of everyone, Mom hissed. People are looking. I glanced around. No one cared except Mom. She's happy, Mom. That's what happy looks like for her. Mom walked away without another word. The party continued, but I felt her eyes on us constantly. Emma filled her plate and found a quiet corner. She sat contentedly, eating while watching the other kids play volleyball. She didn't try to join them. An hour passed. Emma finished eating and started humming softly, one of her comfort behaviors when processing social situations. The sound was barely audible, a gentle melody, but Mom materialized beside us as if summoned by some invisible alarm. Sarah, she needs to stop that. She's not hurting anyone. She's making a scene. People are staring. I looked around. No one was paying attention to us except Mom. Maybe you're the one making a scene, I said quietly. Her face flushed. How dare you? After everything I've done for this family, you bring her here when I specifically asked you not to. Her. She has a name, Mom. Emma's humming had stopped. She was looking at us now, her expression uncertain. She could always sense tension even when she couldn't fully understand it. I want you both to leave. Mom's voice was rising. This is Jessica's special day and I won't have it ruined. We're not ruining anything. Get your daughter out of my house. The words came out as a scream. The volleyball game stopped. Conversations died. Everyone was staring now. Emma's face crumpled. She understood that much. She's not welcome here. Mom's face was red, her finger pointing at Emma like an accusation. I took Emma's hand. It was trembling. We're leaving, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. But understand this, Mom. You just made a choice. Live with it. Emma cried in the car. Not loud sobs, but those quiet tears that somehow hurt worse, the kind that came from the deep understanding that she was being rejected for something she couldn't change. She didn't ask why Grandma hated her. She'd stopped asking those kinds of questions a year ago, after too many painful experiences had taught her that some people would never accept her differences. When we got home, I held her while she rocked on the couch, her way of self-soothing when the world felt too harsh. I didn't try to stop the movement or calm her with words. I just held her and let her process in her own way. My phone started buzzing within an hour. Mom's number lit up the screen. I declined the call. She tried again 2 minutes later and again 5 minutes after that. The calls came in waves throughout the evening, each one ignored. Finally, at 9:30, a text message appeared. "You're being dramatic. I was protecting Jessica's event. You should understand that. Call me so we can discuss this rationally." There was nothing rational to discuss. I blocked her number, watching it disappear from my contacts with a sense of finality that was both frightening and liberating. Dad called the next evening, his voice heavy with the weariness of a man who'd spent decades mediating between his wife and everyone else. "Your mother says there was an incident at the party." "There was." She screamed at Emma in front of 50 people and threw us out because Emma was being autistic at her precious event. He sighed, that familiar sound of defeat and resignation. "You know how your mother gets about appearances. She doesn't mean harm, Sarah. She just wants things to go smoothly. I know exactly how she gets. That's the problem, Dad. Emma is 12 years old. She's your granddaughter. And Mom treated her like a defect that needed to be hidden. Maybe give her a few days to cool down. Then you two can talk. Work it out like adults." "There's nothing to talk about, Dad." She made it crystal clear how she feels about Emma. "I'm not subjecting my daughter to someone who sees her as an embarrassment. Sarah, she's your mother. Family is family. And Emma's my daughter. I know which relationship matters more. I know which person deserves my protection." The line went quiet for a moment. Then Dad said softly, "Your mother won't apologize. You know that, right? She never does." "Then we're done." We didn't speak after that. Not for days, then weeks, then months. The silence stretched between us like a widening canyon. Mom's birthday came in late June and went without acknowledgement. I sent no card, made no call, and didn't even think about it until the day had passed. Thanksgiving approached in November and my sister Jessica called, her voice awkward and apologetic, caught between loyalty and fairness. "Mom wants to know if you're coming. Is Emma invited?" She didn't say Emma couldn't come. Did she say Emma could come? Specifically. Silence. "That's what I thought. Tell Mom we have other plans." We spent Thanksgiving with my ex-husband's family. They'd always treated Emma with genuine warmth. His mother asked about her latest special interest, Egyptian mythology, and actually listened to the 40-minute explanation. Christmas came with no call from Mom. I took Emma to see the downtown lights, just the two of us. She held my hand tightly and pointed out her favorite displays, and I realized we were happier without the constant anxiety. January brought Emma's 13th birthday. We had a small party with her 3 close friends, all neurodivergent kids who understood each other perfectly. They played video games and info-dumped about their interests and didn't have to mask or pretend to be someone else. Emma blew out her candles with a genuine smile. My phone stayed silent through it all. I'd unblocked Dad's number weeks ago, but he hadn't called either. Mom had probably given him an ultimatum, forced him to choose sides. I knew how that worked in their marriage. February was brutal. The coldest winter in 20 years, everyone said. Pipes froze. Heating bills skyrocketed. Emma and I bundled up in blankets and watched movies, our own little world. Then on a Tuesday evening in early March, my doorbell rang. Emma was at her weekly social skills group. I was alone making dinner. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door. Mom stood on my porch. She looked smaller, somehow older. Her perfect hair was disheveled. She wore Dad's oversized coat over a sweater I didn't recognize. Behind her on the sidewalk sat a large suitcase. "Sarah." Her voice cracked. I stood frozen, my hand still on the doorknob. "I have nowhere else to go." The words came out as a whisper. My mind raced. "Where's Dad?" Her face crumpled. "He's gone. Heart attack. 3 weeks ago." The world tilted. 3 weeks. Why didn't anyone tell me? "I told Jessica not to call you. I was so angry that you didn't come to Christmas." But I thought you'd hear somehow and come anyway. But you didn't. I gripped the doorframe. Dad was gone. He died thinking I'd abandoned him. The house, Mom continued, her voice empty. It was in his name. Everything was in his name. I never worked. He handled all the finances. The mortgage wasn't paid off. The life insurance barely covered the funeral. The bank is foreclosing. I have nothing. I should have felt satisfaction. This was the moment from every revenge fantasy. The cruel mother, powerless and desperate, begging at her daughter's door. Dad, I just felt tired. Jessica? I asked. She's in her college dorm. No space. And her roommate. Mom trailed off. I can't live in a dorm room. Your friends. They were Dad's golf buddies' wives. They stopped calling after the funeral. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. I was wrong. About Emma. About the party. About everything. I know that now. Do you? I kept my voice neutral. Or are you just desperate? She flinched. Both. I'm both. But sitting in that empty house packing Dad's clothes, I kept thinking about what he said before he died. What did he say? He was in the ambulance. They were working on him. He looked at me and said, "You ruined it. You ruined everything with Sarah." Those were his last words to me. Tears streamed down her face now. I lost him and I lost you and I lost Emma and it's all my fault. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm begging you. Please. I have nowhere else to go. I stood there looking at this woman who'd screamed at my daughter, who'd chosen appearances over family, who'd let pride destroy relationships. Emma comes home in an hour, I finally said. Mom nodded, waiting. You're going to apologize to her. A real apology. You're going to tell her exactly what you did wrong and why it was wrong. You're going to do it without excuses or explanations about being stressed or protecting Jessica or any of that. I will. I promise. And if you ever make her feel unwelcome or different or less than, again, you're out. I don't care if it's snowing. I don't care if you're sick. You'll leave and never come back. I understand. I stepped aside. You can stay in the guest room. Temporarily. We'll figure out something more permanent later. She picked up her suitcase and walked inside. She looked around our small living room, taking in Emma's art on the walls, her organized collections on the shelves, the sensory-friendly furniture we'd chosen together. You've made a real home here, Mom said quietly. Have Emma and me. She set down her suitcase. I want to be part of it. If you'll let me. I want to learn. I want to do better. The door opened. Emma came in, her social skills instructor waving goodbye. He stopped when she saw Mom. Grandma. Her voice was uncertain. Mom knelt down, making herself smaller, less threatening. Emma, I need to talk to you. I need to say I'm sorry. Emma looked at me. I nodded. I was very wrong, Mom continued. At Jessica's party I was cruel to you. I screamed at you and made you leave, and that was terrible. You didn't do anything wrong. Being yourself is never wrong. I was the one who was wrong. Emma processed this, her fingers tapping her leg. Why were you wrong? Because I cared more about what other people thought than about being kind to you. That's not okay. Family should be kind to each other, especially to kids. I failed at that. Are you going to be mean again? Mom's voice broke. I'm going to try very hard not to be. I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I promise I'll try to be better. Can you give me a chance? Emma looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, Wait, but if you're mean you have to leave. That's fair. They stood in awkward silence. Then Emma asked, Do you want to see my Egyptian mythology collection? Mom smiled, tears still on her face. I'd like that very much. As Emma led her grandmother toward her room, already launching into explanations about Anubis and the weighing of hearts, I leaned against the wall and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. This wasn't a happy ending. Mom had a long way to go to earn back trust. She'd have to prove through actions, not words, that she'd changed. There would be difficult conversations ahead, boundaries to set, disappointments to navigate. But maybe, just maybe, it was a beginning. The chocolate cake sat perfectly centered on the dining table, 24 candles flickering in the afternoon light. My son bounced excitedly near the presents, his friends gathered around, waiting for the moment. I had spent 3 days planning this party, every detail considered, every game prepared. The backyard was transformed with streamers in his favorite colors. A bounce house stood ready in the corner, and goodie bags lined the gift table with military precision. 12 children and their parents filled our small rental house with energy and noise. I had planned for 15, prepared food for 20, and somehow it all worked. The schedule was running perfectly. Games at 2, cake at 3, presents at 3:30. Everything aligned. My sister arrived late as usual, her expression tight with the same frustration she had carried for years. She walked past the decorations without comment, brushed by the welcome table I had set up, dropped a hastily wrapped gift on the table, and immediately found something to criticize. "The balloons are crooked," she muttered, loud enough for the other parents to hear. "And is that store-bought lemonade?" I adjusted the balloons without responding, then refilled the lemonade pitcher I had made from scratch that morning. This was my son's day and nothing would ruin it. Not her comments, not her perpetual disappointment, not the familiar weight of her judgment. The party progressed smoothly. Kids played games in the backyard, parents chatted over coffee, and my son laughed with the pure joy only a 6-year-old knows. I moved between groups, refilling drinks and ensuring everyone had what they needed. When cake time arrived, I carefully lifted the chocolate masterpiece and began cutting perfect slices. The children gathered around, their excitement building. I had just placed the first piece on a plate when my sister's voice cut through the happy chatter. "You ruin every family event," she yelled, loud enough that conversations stopped. Parents turned to look. Children froze mid-reach for their cake. Just like Mom did. The comparisons stung. Our mother had died 3 years ago, and my sister had never forgiven her for things I barely understood. Missed recitals, forgotten promises, a childhood spent feeling second best. Now she was lumping me into that same category of disappointment, as if I carried our mother's failures in my DNA. I set down the cake knife and nodded quietly. "Understood. Always playing the victim," she continued, her voice rising with years of accumulated resentment. "Always making everything about you. Even your own son's birthday has to be some performance of how perfect you are. Look at this whole setup, like you're trying to prove something to everyone." She gestured at the decorations, the carefully arranged food table, the activities I had planned. Everything I had done with love was being reframed as performance, as inadequacy dressed up as effort. The other parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. One mother gathered her child and murmured something about needing to leave early. Another checked her watch pointedly. My son's face crumpled with confusion, his special day suddenly tainted with adult tension he could not possibly understand. My sister's phone buzzed. She glanced at it dismissively, ready to continue her tirade, then did a double take. Her face went pale. Her hands started shaking as she read the screen once, then again as if the words might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. "Regarding your job application," she read aloud in a whisper, then louder, her voice cracking, "meet your new supervisor." She looked up at me, her eyes wide with realization. This can't be right. I continued serving cake to the children, keeping my voice level and focused on the task at hand. "Vanilla or chocolate, sweetheart?" "You," she stammered, her body language shifting from aggressive to uncertain. "You're the department director at Riverside Tech?" One of the other mothers whom I recognized from school pickups spoke up. "Wait, you're the director who just restructured the entire engineering division? My husband works there and mentions you constantly." Another parent chimed in, pulling out her phone. "I just read an article about Riverside's innovation program. Weren't you quoted in Tech Weekly last month about artificial intelligence integration?" My sister's phone rang. She answered it automatically, her voice shaky. "Hello." I could hear the tinny voice on the other end. "Miss Peterson? This is Margaret from Human Resources at Riverside Tech. We wanted to confirm your Monday interview with Director Williams. She'll be conducting the final interview personally." My sister's eyes remained locked on mine. "Director Williams," she repeated. "Yes, she specifically requested to meet all senior developer candidates. She's very thorough. We'll see you at 9 sharp." Yes. Thank you." She ended the call. The party had gone quiet. My son tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, who's Director Williams?" "That's me, sweetie. It's my work name. Now, do you want the corner piece with extra frosting?" His face lit up again, the crisis forgotten. The other children returned to their cake and gradually the party noise resumed. My sister remained frozen near the doorway. Another mother approached her. You applied to Riverside? My neighbor just got hired there. She says the benefits are incredible but the interview process is intense. Apparently, the director personally vets everyone. How long have you been there? My sister asked me, her voice barely audible. 4 years. I started as a senior engineer, moved to team lead after 18 months, and took over the department 2 years ago. But you always said you worked in tech support. You assumed I worked in tech support, I corrected gently. I said I worked in technology. You never asked for details. A colleague from work, dropping off her daughter, overheard the conversation. Wait, this is your sister? The one you mentioned during the leadership retreat. I shot her a look, but she continued enthusiastically. You should be so proud. She just secured a $12 million contract with the aerospace division. The CEO personally called to congratulate her. My sister sat down heavily in one of the folding chairs. 12 million. The party isn't really the place, I started, but my colleague was already pulling out her phone. Look, it was in the company newsletter. Director Williams leads team to record-breaking quarter. There's your picture and everything. He showed my sister the screen. There I was, standing with the executive team accepting an award for innovation in systems architecture. I don't understand, my sister whispered. You drive a 10-year-old sedan. You live in this tiny rental house. You never talk about work. I drive a reliable car because I don't care about impressing people. I live here because it's close to good schools and my son's friends. And I don't talk about work because family time isn't about job titles. Another parent, overhearing, added their own observation. I thought everyone knew. My wife's company tried to recruit her last year. They offered a huge signing bonus but she turned it down. Said she liked her team too much to leave. My sister's phone buzzed again. Another email. Then another. Her face grew increasingly pale as she read them. They're sending me the interview packet, she said quietly. Background on the department leadership. Your bio is here. MIT graduate. Published researcher. Forbes 30 under 32 years ago. She looked up. How did I not know any of this? You never asked. Every time I tried to talk about work, you'd change the subject or make a comment about how boring technology is. Remember Thanksgiving 2 years ago? I started to explain a project I was leading, and you interrupted to say that computer stuff was too complicated for normal people to understand. At Dad's birthday last year when I mentioned a promotion, you said something about how nice it must be to have such low-pressure work. My sister's face flushed. I didn't mean. And at Christmas when Dad asked about my job I said I managed engineering projects and had a team of 30 people reporting to me. You talked over me to discuss your job search. You've been talking over me for years. But at Christmas when Dad asked what you did you said. I said I managed engineering projects. That's accurate. You interrupted to talk about your own job search and how difficult the market was. The party was winding down. Parents collected their children, thanking me for a lovely afternoon. Several mentioned they'd heard great things about Riverside Tech and asked if we were hiring. I handed out my business cards to 2 who had relevant experience. After the last guest left, my son went to play with his new toys. My sister remained at the table staring at her phone. The position I applied for, she said slowly, reports directly to you. Senior Developer Platform Architecture Team. Yes. And you'll be interviewing me. Along with 2 of my team leads and the HR director. It's a standard process. She set her phone down carefully. After what I just did. After what I said in front of everyone. Your interview will be evaluated on your technical skills, experience and cultural fit with the team, same as everyone else. You're not going to reject me because of today? I met her eyes. I'm going to evaluate you as a candidate, not as my sister. If you're qualified and you can work effectively with the team, you'll be considered fairly. If you're not qualified or if your behavior suggests you won't collaborate well, you won't be hired. That's how I run my department. I called you a failure. For years. At every family gathering I made comments about your life choices, your career, your parenting. Yes, you did. And you never corrected me. Would you have believed me if I had? I started clearing paper plates and cups. Every time I tried to share anything about my work, you either dismissed it or turned the conversation back to yourself. It was easier to just let you think whatever you wanted to think. She helped gather napkins, moving mechanically. Dad thinks you work in customer service. I know. I stopped correcting him after the 5th time he forgot. He brags about me getting interviews at big companies. He has no idea you run a department at one of the biggest tech firms in the region. He's proud of you. That's good. But he should be proud of you. I tied up a garbage bag. I don't need Dad's pride. I have a job I love, a son I adore, and a team that respects me. That's enough. My sister was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, the interview on Monday. Should I still come? Do you want the job? I need it. My current company is downsizing. They've already let go of 15 people in my department. I've been interviewing for 3 months with no offers. Every rejection chips away a little more. I'm 2 months behind on rent. My car payment is overdue. This job, it's not just want, it's survival. And now I find out my sister, the one I've spent years dismissing, is the gatekeeper. The vulnerability in her voice was unfamiliar. We had not spoken honestly in years, maybe ever. Then prepare like you would for any interview, I said firmly. Review the job requirements. Study our recent projects. They're all public on our website. Be ready to discuss your experience with platform architecture and scalable systems. Refresh your knowledge of cloud infrastructure. We use primarily containerized deployments. The interview starts at 9. Don't be late. We have 5 candidates scheduled and we respect everyone's time. And you'll be fair? I'm always fair. That's why my team works. She picked up her purse, then paused at the door. I'm sorry. For today. For everything. Apologies are nice. Changed behavior is better. If you get this job, you'll need to work with people you might have underestimated. You'll need to respect expertise even when it comes from unexpected places. Can you do that? She nodded slowly. I can try. Then I'll see you Monday at 9. After she left, I found my son in his room building with his new blocks. He looked up with a smile. Did you have a good birthday? I asked. The best. Even though Aunt got weird about the cake. Sometimes adults have complicated feelings. It's not about you. I know. You always say family is complicated. He returned to his blocks. Mommy, what's a director? It means I help people do their jobs well. I make sure everyone has what they need to succeed. Like how you made sure everyone at my party had cake? I smiled. Exactly like that. Monday morning, I arrived at the office early and reviewed the interview schedule. My sister's name was 3rd on the list. I had already read her resume and technical assessment. Her skills were solid, her experience relevant. If she could demonstrate the right attitude and collaboration ability, she would be an asset to the team. Margaret from HR stopped by my office. Ready for today's interviews? Always. Any concerns? The 3rd candidate. I noticed she has the same last name. My sister. I disclosed the relationship when her application came through. If there's any conflict, I can recuse myself from the decision. No, I trust your judgment. Just wanted to confirm you're comfortable with it. I'm comfortable evaluating her fairly. That's all any candidate can ask for. At 9 sharp, my sister arrived. She wore a professional suit, carried a portfolio, and looked nervous but prepared. I greeted her in the conference room along with my 2 team leads. For the next 90 minutes, we put her through the standard interview process. Technical questions about system architecture, database optimization, and security protocols. Problem-solving scenarios where we presented real challenges our team had faced. Team collaboration examples from her previous positions. She answered thoughtfully, admitted when she didn't know something rather than bluffing, and demonstrated genuine curiosity about our projects. She asked intelligent questions about our development pipeline, our code review process, and our approach to technical debt. When we presented a whiteboard problem involving load balancing across distributed systems, she worked through it methodically. Her solution was not the most elegant I had seen, but it was solid and showed a good understanding of fundamentals. She explained her reasoning clearly, responded well to challenging questions, and acknowledged alternative approaches when my team leads suggested them. She was good. Not exceptional but solid and coachable. Exactly the kind of senior developer we needed. Someone with experience who could also grow with the team. After she left, my team leads and I compared notes. Strong technical foundation, one said. Needs some updating on newer frameworks, but that's trainable. Good communication skills, the other added. Seemed genuinely interested in learning. I think she'd fit well with the team culture. I nodded. Then we're agreed. Make the offer. 3 days later, my sister accepted the position. She started the following Monday, joining the team as one of 8 senior developers. I treated her exactly as I treated everyone else, with clear expectations and fair evaluation. At our first family dinner after she started, my father asked how her new job was going. It's challenging, she said. My supervisor has high standards. That's good. Keeps you sharp. She glanced at me across the table. Yes, she does. I raised my glass slightly in acknowledgement and continued eating. There was nothing more that needed to be said. Give the money to my son or get out, my brother Marcus screamed across the living room at my daughter's 7th birthday party. You don't deserve to be here anyway. I stood there holding Lily's hand, watching 20 children freeze mid-game. The bounce house in the backyard went silent, its colorful walls deflating slightly in the afternoon breeze. Parents stopped their conversations mid-sentence and stared, some instinctively pulling out their phones. The hired entertainer, a magician who had been setting up his table, paused with a deck of cards in his hands, looking uncomfortable. Mom set down her coffee cup slowly, the china clinking against the saucer. Dad adjusted his glasses but said nothing, his newspaper folded neatly on his lap. My sister-in-law Jennifer smirked from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, her designer jewelry catching the light. She'd been waiting for this moment, I realized. They'd planned this confrontation. Marcus, it's Lily's birthday, I said quietly. Can we talk about this later? No, he stepped closer, his face red. Your brat gets presents every year while my son gets nothing. Dylan deserves that envelope you brought. Hand it over. The envelope in my purse contained $200, 10 crisp $20 bills I'd saved for months to take Lily to the theme park she'd been begging to visit. She'd marked the days on her calendar, circling the date in purple marker. She'd made a list of rides she wanted to try. It was all she'd talked about for weeks. That's for Lily's trip, I explained, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. I promised her. Your promises don't matter in my house. Marcus jabbed his finger toward the door, his wedding ring glinting. You're a guest here. My rules. Give Dylan the money or leave. My son deserves it more than your kid does. The cruelty of those words hung in the air. Several parents exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. One mother gathered her daughter's jacket, preparing to leave. I looked at Mom. She studied her hands. Dad cleared his throat but remained silent. Jennifer walked over and put her hand on Marcus's shoulder. She's always been selfish. Remember when we paid for her college textbooks? She never even thanked us properly. That was 15 years ago. I'd thanked them repeatedly and paid them back within 6 months. I paid you back, I said. With attitude, Jennifer snapped. You've always thought you were better than this family. Lily tugged my sleeve. Mommy, can we just go? My daughter's eyes were filling with tears. Her friends watched from the corner where they'd been playing. The princess cake I'd spent 3 hours decorating sat untouched on the dining table. Marcus snatched the envelope from my purse before I could stop him. He ripped it open and counted the bills. 200. That'll cover the party costs at least. You said I could host Lily's party here, I said, my heart pounding but my voice calm. You offered. And you should be grateful. He pocketed the money. This house costs money to maintain. The least you can do is contribute. I pulled out my phone and smiled. You're right. This house does cost money. What are you doing? Jennifer moved toward me. I typed quickly and hit send. Just making a call. Marcus laughed. Calling someone to rescue you? Typical. Can't handle your own problems. Something like that. I knelt down to Lily's level. Sweetheart, go get your presents from the table. Tell your friends thank you for coming. But the cake. We'll have cake somewhere else. Better cake. I stood and looked at my parents. They still hadn't moved. Dad's jaw was tight but he avoided my eyes. You're just going to leave? Mom finally spoke. On your daughter's birthday? I was asked to leave. Because you wouldn't help family, Marcus said. You never help family. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and nodded. Actually, I help family constantly, I said. Who do you think has been paying the property taxes on this house for the last 3 years? The room went quiet. Jennifer laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. We pay our own taxes. Check your records, I suggested. You'll find they've been paid by a property management company, PMC Holdings. Marcus's confidence faltered for just a second. So what? That doesn't mean anything. It means I own PMC Holdings, I said simply. I bought this house 18 months ago when you were 3 months from foreclosure. The bank was going to seize it in early spring last year. I paid off your mortgage, all $380,000 of it, and let you stay here rent-free. I covered the back taxes, the penalty fees, everything. You were going to lose your home, your credit, everything you'd built. Jennifer's face drained of color. You're lying. Am I? I showed her my phone screen, an email from my lawyer confirming the property transfer. I've been covering your expenses while you rebuilt your credit. I never mentioned it because I didn't want you to feel embarrassed. Marcus grabbed the phone from my hand. He stared at the screen, scrolling through the documents. His hands started shaking. This can't be real. It's very real. I took my phone back. I also paid for the roof repair last spring. That was $12,000 when the storm damage nearly collapsed your attic. And the new furnace in December when yours died during that cold snap. Another $8,000. And your son Dylan's private school tuition that you couldn't afford. $15,000 per year for the last 2 years. I've spent over $400,000 keeping your family afloat. Why would you do that? Mom whispered. Because you're family, I said. I thought that mattered. Dad finally stood up. Marcus, is this true? Were you really going to lose the house? Marcus couldn't speak. Jennifer's eyes darted between me and her husband. The bank sent multiple foreclosure notices, I continued. I contacted them and made an offer. They accepted. I set up the property management company to handle everything discreetly. I didn't want you to know you'd almost lost everything. Then why tell us now? Jennifer's voice cracked. Because I just sent an email to my lawyer and the property management company. I checked my phone again. As of 2 minutes ago, I'm terminating your residency agreement. You have 30 days to vacate. Marcus lunged toward me, but Dad stepped between us. You can't do this, Marcus said. We have nowhere to go. You have 30 days to figure that out. I called to Lily. Honey, are you ready? My daughter came over with a small bag of presents. Her friends stood awkwardly by the door with their parents, who had been watching everything unfold. I'm sorry everyone had to see this, I said to the other parents. We're moving the party to Riverside Park. There's a pavilion there. Anyone who wants to join us is welcome. We'll have the cake and ice cream there. Most of the parents nodded and started gathering their children. Wait, Jennifer pleaded. Can't we talk about this? You had years to talk to me with respect, I said. Instead, you took my money, my help, my time, and treated me like I was worthless. You tried to steal my daughter's birthday money in front of her. It wasn't stealing, Marcus stammered. We needed. You needed to feel superior, I finished. You needed someone to look down on. That was more important than honesty or gratitude. My phone rang. I answered on speaker. Miss Torres. A man's voice came through clearly. This is Dave from Precision Locksmith. We've changed all the locks on the property as requested. The new keys are with your property manager. Should we leave the old keys with the current occupants? No, I said, watching Marcus's face. They won't be needing them. They'll be moving out. Understood. The security system has also been updated. Only you and your property manager have the codes now. Perfect. Thank you, Dave. I hung up and looked at Marcus. Your house keys stopped working about 5 minutes ago. Don't bother trying them. Jennifer started crying. Where are we supposed to go tonight? You have access until tonight at midnight, I said. After that, the security system activates. I suggest you pack essentials and find a hotel. You have 30 days to remove your belongings during supervised appointments. You're putting us on the street, Marcus said, his voice breaking. No, I'm removing you from my property. There's a difference. I picked up Lily's cake carefully. You put yourselves in this situation. The foreclosure, the debts, the inability to manage money. Those were your choices. I gave you a second chance. You used it to treat me like garbage. Mom finally stood. This is too harsh. They're your brother and his wife. And Lily is your granddaughter, I said. You watched him bully her and steal from her and said nothing. You've watched them treat me like this for years and said nothing. You chose sides today, Mom. You chose wrong. Dad moved toward me. We can fix this. Family should stick together. I've been sticking together by myself, I said. I'm done. I walked toward the door with Lily. The other families had already left and were waiting outside. Please, Jennifer called out. We'll apologize. We'll pay you back. With what money? I asked. You couldn't pay your mortgage. You can't pay your son's tuition. You took my daughter's birthday money. What exactly are you going to pay me back with? Marcus slumped onto the couch, his head in his hands. The property management company will contact you tomorrow with move-out procedures, I continued. All communication goes through them now. Don't call me. Don't show up at my apartment. Don't contact Lily's school. If you violate those terms, I'll pursue legal action for the theft that occurred today. It wasn't theft, Jennifer protested weakly. You took money from my purse without permission in front of witnesses. That's textbook theft. I adjusted the cake in my arms. I'm choosing not to press charges if you comply with the move-out terms. Push me and I'll reconsider. I opened the door. Sunshine streamed in. Outside, I could hear children laughing, ready to continue the party elsewhere. One more thing, I said, turning back. The property management company has all your financial records. When I bought this house, I assumed all the documentation. I know about the second mortgage you took out and spent on a boat you had to sell 6 months later. I know about the credit cards maxed out on furniture you couldn't afford. I know about the country club membership you maintained while claiming you couldn't pay utilities. Marcus looked up, his eyes red. I know everything, I said quietly. And I still helped you. I still paid your bills. I still gave you a home. And this is how you repaid me, by trying to humiliate my daughter on her birthday. I walked out and closed the door behind me. At the park, Lily's party transformed into something better. The pavilion had picnic tables and a playground. Parents helped set up the cake and decorations. Children ran around playing tag. Lily hugged me tight. Are we really not going back to Uncle Marcus's house? Never, I promised. We don't need people who treat us that way. But you owned his house, she said. You never told me. I didn't want you to think differently about them, I explained. I wanted them to treat us well because they loved us, not because they owed us. They didn't love us anyway, she said sadly. No. But lots of people do. I gestured to her friends, laughing and playing. These people came to celebrate you. That's what matters. My phone buzzed throughout the afternoon. Messages from Marcus, Jennifer, Mom and Dad. I didn't read them. I silenced the notifications and focused on my daughter's happiness. When we got home that evening, Lily counted her birthday money from her grandparents on her father's side. They'd mailed a card with $50. Combined with money from friends, she had enough for her theme park trip. We're still going? She asked, eyes bright. Absolutely, I said. Next weekend. What about Uncle Marcus and Aunt Jennifer? Where will they live? That's not our problem anymore, I said gently. They're adults. They'll figure it out. Are you sad? I thought about it. A little. I'm sad they chose to be cruel instead of kind. But I'm not sad about my decision. Some people don't deserve access to our lives even if they're family. The next morning my lawyer called. The property management company received 17 calls yesterday, he said. From Marcus, Jennifer, your parents and several other family members. They're demanding to speak with you. Let them demand, I said. What are the legal standings? Solid. The 30-day notice is valid. They have no legal recourse. The theft incident is documented with witness statements if you want to pursue it. I don't. As long as they vacate peacefully. Understood. One more thing. Marcus's employer contacted the property management company. They wanted to verify his address for their records. Should we respond? Tell them he's relocating and should update his information through proper channels, I said. It's not our responsibility to manage his life anymore. 3 weeks later I drove past the house. A moving truck sat in the driveway. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just kept driving toward Lily's school, where I was volunteering for her class field trip. My phone rang, Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail. She'd called every day. I hadn't answered once. That evening I listened to her message. "Please call me back," she said, her voice tired. Marcus and Jennifer moved into a small apartment. "They're struggling. Dad and I are helping them financially, but it's hard. Can't you give them another chance? Family should forgive." I deleted the message. Family should also protect, support, and respect. They'd failed at all three. Lily came into the kitchen while I was preparing dinner. "Mom, can we have my friends over next month for a pool party? At the community center?" I asked. "Yeah. They have that huge pool with the slides." "Absolutely." I smiled. "We'll make it amazing." She hugged me tight. "You're the best mom ever." I hugged her back, thinking about the house I'd given up, the money I'd spent, the family I'd lost. Worth it. Every single bit. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. Some doors are better left locked. "How dare you cut the cake without my son's permission?" Jessica screamed across the backyard, her voice cutting through the cheerful birthday music like a knife. I froze mid-slice, the plastic knife still pressed against the blue dinosaur cake I'd spent 3 hours decorating for my son Tyler's 5th birthday. The fondant scales had taken forever to get right, each one carefully shaped and placed. The chocolate ganache filling was Tyler's favorite. I'd even found edible glitter that matched the Jurassic theme perfectly. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me, parents and children alike, falling silent as Jessica stormed across the lawn, her heels sinking into the grass with each furious step. She'd arrived late to the party, made a grand entrance with an enormous wrapped present that dwarfed all the other gifts, and immediately started criticizing everything from the decorations to the party favors to the bounce house I'd rented. "You're selfish, just like your dead mother," she spat loud enough for every single guest to hear. The words hung in the air like poison. I felt my hand tremble slightly on the knife, but I kept my expression neutral. "Come." I'd learned years ago that showing emotion to Jessica only made things worse. "Jessica, it's Tyler's birthday," I said quietly, gesturing to my son who stood frozen by the bounce house, his little face confused and hurt. "He asked me to cut the cake so his friends could have some. My Braden is older. He should have cut it first." Jessica jabbed her finger toward her 7-year-old son, who looked just as uncomfortable as Tyler. "You always do this. Always making everything about yourself, never considering real family." Real family. The phrase she'd been using since Mom died 3 years ago, as if my existence somehow became negotiable once our mother wasn't around to defend me. I set down the knife and pulled out my phone, typing a quick message while Jessica continued her tirade about respect and family hierarchy and how Mom would be ashamed of my selfishness. The irony of that statement almost made me laugh. "I'm texting the trustee about your monthly allowance," I said softly, not looking up from my phone. "Asking if we should continue it." Jessica's face drained of color so fast I thought she might faint. "What?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I looked up, meeting her eyes with the same calm expression I'd maintained throughout her entire performance. "Your allowance. From the family trust. I'm asking the trustee if we should keep sending it." "You can't," she started, but her voice cracked. "Actually, I can." I slipped my phone back into my pocket. "Now, should we sing happy birthday to Tyler, or would you like to continue making a scene at a 5-year-old's party?" Jessica's husband, Mark, appeared at her elbow, his face tight with embarrassment. "Jess, maybe we should." "Shut up, Mark," she hissed, but her eyes never left mine. "You're bluffing. You don't control anything." I smiled. "Okay." The party continued awkwardly. Parents whispered to each other while trying to act normal for the children's sake, but I caught fragments of their conversations. Did she really say that about her own mother? At a child's birthday party? Poor thing, losing her mom and having a sister like that. Tyler opened his presents with forced enthusiasm, his earlier joy dampened by the tension. He kept glancing nervously between me and his aunt, his small hands fumbling with wrapping paper that earlier he would have torn into with glee. Each gift came with sympathetic smiles from the parents, extra encouragement, as if they could somehow compensate for what Jessica had done. I served cake. The dinosaur's head went to Tyler as planned, and made small talk with the other parents, answering questions about whether I'd made the cake myself, sharing the recipe for the frosting, laughing at the appropriate moments. All while Jessica stood rigid by the fence, her face cycling between rage and panic, her phone clutched in a white-knuckled grip. The bounce house suddenly seemed too loud. Children shrieked with laughter that felt jarring against the adult tension. Someone's daughter got frosting in her hair. Two boys argued over a toy from the party favors. Normal party chaos that felt surreal after what had just happened. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later. I glanced at the screen and saw the trustee's response, then looked up to find Jessica staring at me from across the yard. "Excuse me," I said to the parent I'd been chatting with and walked toward my sister. She met me halfway, grabbing my arm hard enough to hurt. "We need to talk. Now." I led her into the house, away from the guests. The moment the sliding door closed behind us, Jessica turned on me. "What the hell was that about?" Her voice shook with equal parts anger and fear. "You can't just threaten me in front of everyone. Those people are our neighbors, their parents from Tyler's school, they're witnesses," I said calmly. "They're witnesses to what you said about me and our mother at a child's birthday party." Jessica's face flushed. I lost my temper. "You know how I get when I'm stressed." "Stressed about what?" "A 5-year-old cutting his own birthday cake." I crossed my arms. "Or were you stressed because you've been living beyond your means again and the credit card bills are piling up?" Her eyes widened. "How do you know about?" "I know everything about your finances, Jessica. Everything." "I didn't threaten you," I said calmly. "I asked a legitimate question about financial distributions from our family trust. You have nothing to do with Mom's trust." "Actually, Jessica, I have everything to do with it." I pulled up the trustee's email on my phone and handed it to her. "Read it." I watched her face as she read, watched the exact moment comprehension hit. Her skin went from pale to gray. "This is fake," she whispered, but her hands trembled as she held my phone. "Mom wouldn't have." "Mom did." I took my phone back. "She made me trustee of the entire estate 2 months before she died. $47 million, Jessica. Every penny she inherited from Grandma, plus her investments, the rental properties, the stock portfolio, the beach house you think sits empty, everything. And you've been receiving $15,000 monthly from that trust for 3 years now, deposited on the first of every month like clockwork." Jessica sat down heavily on the couch, her designer handbag sliding off her shoulder onto the floor. "That's not possible. The lawyer said the estate was being managed professionally. He showed us documents, distribution schedules. The lawyer said what Mom told him to say, that distributions would be handled by the trustee according to her wishes. You assumed it was the law firm managing everything on autopilot. It wasn't. It was me. Every single distribution required my approval. Every month for 3 years I've authorized your payment. But you work at that coffee shop." The words burst out of her like an accusation. "You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You live in a rental. You're a barista. Mom always worried about you making ends meet." "I own the coffee shop," I corrected. 3 of them, actually, Bloom Coffee on Main Street, the one on Campus Drive, and the new location downtown that just opened last month. Mom's trust funded the initial investment 4 years ago, back when she was still healthy enough to help me draft the business plan. The income covers Tyler's expenses nicely, plus some extras. I work there because I enjoy it, not because I need to. The Honda runs fine. The rental is in a good school district. And Mom never worried about my finances because she knew exactly what she'd set up for me. Jessica's mouth opened and closed several times, her carefully applied lipstick smudged at the corner. "But you always said money was tight. You bought Tyler's clothes at thrift stores. You said you couldn't afford." I said I preferred not to waste money on overpriced children's clothes they'd outgrow in 3 months. There's a difference between frugal and poor, Jessica. Mom taught me that. Jessica's mouth opened and closed several times. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Why would I? So you could demand more money? Criticize how I manage it? Use it as another way to prove I'm not real family?" I shook my head. "Mom knew exactly what she was doing when she structured the trust this way. She knew you'd waste it if you had full access. The monthly allowance keeps you comfortable, but controlled. I'm your sister. And you just called me selfish like our dead mother at my son's birthday party," I said, my voice level but edged with steel. "In front of his friends. In front of other parents. You made my 5-year-old cry because I cut a cake he specifically asked me to cut." Jessica looked away. "I didn't mean." "You did mean it. You always mean it." I checked my phone again. "The trustee is waiting for my instructions." I can continue your allowance at the current rate, increase it, decrease it, or terminate it entirely. Mom left that decision completely up to my discretion. You can't cut me off. I absolutely can. The trust documents are very clear. As trustee, I have full authority over all distributions. You want to know what else is in there? Mom's letter. 3 pages explaining exactly why she chose this arrangement. I pulled up a photo of the letter on my phone. Want to read what she said about your real family comments? Jessica's face crumpled. She knew. Of course she knew. You weren't exactly subtle. I zoomed in on one paragraph. Here. Jessica has always valued appearance over substance, money over character. She will undoubtedly treat her sister poorly once I'm gone, convinced that bloodline matters more than love. Let her learn the hard way that the sister she dismissed controls her financial future. The silence stretched between us. Outside, I could hear children laughing, the bounce house squeaking, Tyler's voice raised in delight over something. Normal birthday sounds. Happy sounds. What do you want? Jessica finally asked, her voice small. I want you to leave Tyler's party. No. Quietly. Make an excuse about Braden not feeling well. That's it. For now. I put my phone away. But Jessica, hear me clearly. If you ever speak to me or about Mom that way again, especially in front of my son, the allowance stops immediately. Not reduced. Terminated. And before you think I'm bluffing, remember that I've been managing this trust for 3 years without you knowing. I don't make threats I can't back up. Jessica stood slowly, looking 10 years older than when we'd walked into the house. The allowance is all we have. Mark's business is struggling and the mortgage. I know exactly what your financial situation is. The trustee provides me quarterly reports on all beneficiaries. I walked toward the sliding door. That's why you've been receiving $15,000 monthly instead of the $10,000 Mom's letter suggested. I increased it when Mark's company started having problems. Because despite everything, you're still my sister, and Tyler deserves to have his cousin in his life. Her eyes widened. You increased it? Last year. You didn't notice because it deposited automatically. I opened the door, letting in the sounds of the party. But generosity isn't the same as tolerance, Jessica. I can be kind to you without accepting cruelty from you. Learn the difference. Jessica walked past me without another word, her shoulders slumped. I watched her collect Mark and Braden, saw her whisper something to her husband that made his expression shift from confusion to shock. They left through the side gate, Braden waving goodbye to Tyler with genuine disappointment. Tyler ran up to me as I stepped back into the yard. Why did Aunt Jessica leave? Did I do something wrong? I knelt to his level, brushing frosting from his cheek. No, baby. You did nothing wrong. Braden wasn't feeling well, so they had to go home early. Oh. He seemed to accept this. Can we do the piñata now? Absolutely. The rest of the party went smoothly. Parents who'd witnessed Jessica's outburst made a point of complimenting the cake, the decorations, and what a wonderful job I was doing raising Tyler on my own. I smiled and thanked them, not mentioning that I wasn't quite as on my own as they assumed. Mom's trust ensured Tyler would never want for anything, would have the best education, the best opportunities. After the guests left and Tyler crashed hard on the couch, surrounded by new toys and exhausted from excitement, I pulled out my phone and sent the final message to the trustee. Continue Jessica's allowance at current amount. Flag account for review if she makes any unusual requests. Will provide updated instructions if circumstances change. The response came immediately. Understood. Trust continues as directed. Your mother would be proud of your discretion. I looked at the framed photo on the mantel. Mom holding newborn Tyler in the hospital, her smile radiant despite the cancer she'd hidden from everyone for another year. She'd known exactly how things would unfold. Known that Jessica would show her true colors once the buffer of Mom's presence was gone. Known that I'd need protection and power to stand against a family that had never quite accepted me. $47 million wasn't just inheritance. It was armor. It was ammunition. It was Mom's final gift, carefully planned and precisely delivered. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't know. I typed back. You're sorry you didn't know. Not sorry for what you said. There's a difference. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, you're right. I'm sorry for what I said. About you. About Mom. It was cruel and wrong. Better. Not perfect but better. Acknowledged. See you at Thanksgiving. And Jessica? Braden is always welcome here. This is between you and me, not the kids. Thank you. I set down my phone and looked at my sleeping son, chocolate smudged on his chin, one hand still clutching his new toy dinosaur. 5 years old today. Growing up so fast. And completely protected from the financial games and family politics that had defined my childhood. Mom had made sure of that. She'd made sure of everything. Outside, the sun was setting, casting golden light across the remnants of the party. Deflated balloons, empty paper plates, the demolished cake stand. Evidence of a celebration that had almost been ruined but was ultimately saved by a secret kept for 3 years. I'd cut the cake because my son asked me to. Such a simple thing. Such a normal thing. And it had revealed everything. Sometimes the smallest acts of defiance carry the largest consequences. Tyler stirred on the couch, mumbling something about dinosaurs in his sleep. I pulled a blanket over him and kissed his forehead, then began cleaning up the yard. The trust would continue. Jessica would learn. And Tyler would grow up knowing that family, real family, meant more than blood and hierarchy and permission to cut birthday cakes. It meant love. Protection. The kind of strength that looked like gentleness until someone tested it. Mom had taught me that. And now finally I taught Jessica. The lesson was expensive, but some things are worth the cost.